Welcome back, everybody, for another look at the US banking app market. This particular session is looking at the US Tier 1 banks, and in particular, we're going to look at what is making the US bank the best of the best and standing out from the rest for May of 2022. And not just May 2022, Tony Patrick, they have been the standout performer forever, pretty much, haven't they?
They sure have. They were doing very well about a year ago, or even before that, but they've just improved on that month on month. So I might just jump into it.
Go for it.
So today we're looking at the US Tier 1 banks, and you can see here that we're looking at US Bank, our focus today, Capital One, PNC, and Truist. So I might jump right into it. And the first port of call is obviously this one here. We look at the actual score across time. So if we look at this, one of the things, before I jump into US Bank, one of the things I can see is Truist. So Truist had trouble, we can see there, from June to November last year, sitting at an average of 1.5, below 2 on their average score. Then they've made some changes in December into January and picked up to 3.25. So a massive improvement, and it's great to see that they've actually turned it around so fast. A bit of a drop-off in February, but that's continuing improvement from that. So the next 3 points along there is now sitting at around 3.2. So really solid and getting to the point where it could overtake PNC at any point if they continue the ride they're on. So we might look at a different point about how a gradual improvement like that can actually make those changes. So what gradual improvements have they made? So one of the things we can see at the top, though, which is our focus today, is looking at US Bank. So if I just put my mouse over here, I can see that they were sitting with an engaged customer score of 4.6. Now, just so everyone's aware of what an engaged customer score is, it's those customers giving a score and a comment. By looking at it from that perspective, we can be really sensitive in terms of movement. So these movements are real from a customer's perspective in terms of what's going on in the app market. So sitting here at 4.6, we can see, now one of the things we see other brands doing, they often will have a problem and they'll dip down. They fix that and they dip back up. One of the things we're seeing US Bank do, which we use as a bit of a benchmark, a global benchmark for best practice, they've actually got a tiered improvement. So at 4.6, you think, wow, how could they improve from there? Well, a few months later, they did. They hit about 4.7. Slight drop off following month. Then they're hitting 4.7 again, and a slight drop off, and just above 4.7 into 4.8 into April and May. So look, how do they keep that going? Because you're looking at Capital One, and they're doing really well in their own right. Again, a sort of a global best player, but they've slightly dropped off in February into May, and the gap now is about 0.6 between the two of them. Actually, in May, it's about 0.4. So why is US Bank doing so well? So let's investigate that. So one of the first ports of call we often look at is what we call our surf pillars. So in this case here, these are our surf pain points. Now, surf is represented by security and authentication, user interface, reliability, and features. So that just shows us, across the board, this gives us a great indication about where you're doing well and not so well. Now, the lower here, the better. So these are pain points, be aware. So the lower, the better. One of the standouts, of course, is US Bank. Authentication, only 0.7% of their comments are related to security and authentication. So that is an amazing number. And again, they're very low on the user interface issues. Reliability issues are around 2%, and feature issues are around 2.5%. So that's just a great perspective about what you should be doing from a best practice approach. As compared to, we saw that the Truist is improving, but it's still, you can see still there's a lot of room to improve across all four areas here. Let's have a look at, now these are the same numbers, but just a stacked bar chart. What we can see here is that US Bank actually, in total, its pain points in these specific areas is sitting at below 10%. And although Capital One's doing very well and it's just above 10, that gap is what's making that 0.4 difference in that score. That gap between about 8% and 12% here. We can see that Truist still has a lot of room to improve, which means there's a good chance it could actually catch up to PNC in the next round. What I'll do now is have a look at features. So what we're looking at here is actually some core features that are that are used in these apps, and these are the things that are most important to customers, the things that the customers are doing all the time, the things they want to achieve with a banking app. One of the first ones isn't necessarily a core banking feature as such, app logging in, but of course it's vital. If that doesn't happen, then nothing else could happen. So in this case here, we're looking at the score is the average score when people talk about this particular topic. So the higher, the better in this case. And we can see US Bank is standing out at 3.6 for login. So as compared to Truist at 1.5. So Truist has a bit of a gap to close there to make that part of the customer journey a smooth one, the same way that the US Bank is. We see there that now this is in order of the importance for a lot of these things. So check deposit feature is sitting at 4.5, and that's well above others. So that's sort of sitting at sort of nearly double what others are actually achieving. So they've actually hit the mark in that case. So again, if you're going to sort of improve your check deposit feature, have a look at what US Bank are doing, because they're the ones getting it right. Across the board, there are a few others where we see that Capital One is actually sort of lining up to some extent, and playing on a level playing field with US Bank. But what I want to do though is just have a look at those two side by side. So I'm looking here now at what I might do now though is actually have a look at these two, maybe over the past 6 months, not just across all time. Let's look at this for the past 6 months, and we can then see what they've done recently, because that's when that big gap was, that 0.4 to 0.5 gap that's continuous over that time period. So one of the things we can see is that Capital One is underperforming on logging in and also check deposit, and we can see that the US Bank is doing really well. It's a 4.6. Like when people use that feature, they love it. Now, where this one here about account balance feature, we can see that Capital One and US Bank are actually lining up pretty tightly. So that's one area where Capital One might want to just say, look, let's maintain and maybe enhance that a little bit, but that's one thing we're doing well on. So don't focus on that too much anymore. Let's focus on this check deposit area, because that's important to customers. Let's focus on this payment feature and transferring funds, because we're underperforming compared to the next best in this case. One of the things I'd like to look at, though, is actually having a look at what's the difference in these two particular brands in terms of custom comments, these banks here. So let's have a look first at app transfer funds feature and the comments coming through from customers. So broadly on the right, this is a bit of a concept cloud across to the right there. You can see it's all green. We're seeing there's a lot of comments there. It's all positive in terms of all the topics coming through. And in my examples in transferring funds, I'm getting, there's one there around transfers are cumbersome, but in general, we're seeing a lot of positive stuff. So Zelle is the easiest way to send money, convenient way of sending money, convenient to transfer funds. So very, very positive across the board. Mostly 5s, a few 4s, and a couple of people who have an issue. So even they've got still room to improve. Let's contrast that with what we have for Capital One. So Capital One are doing reasonably well, but we can see there's some room for improvement. So first, starting with the concept cloud, we can see there's a few red things there. So these things are dragging their score backwards to some extent. So you don't want a feature to be dragging your score backwards. What I can do then is actually have a look at the comments coming through here. So again, we don't see a whole lot of 5s in here. They are coming through. So there's room definitely to improve here. The payments are slow. People want to do real-time transfers. The Zelle option is taking 3 days to send money. So there's sort of issues there that we aren't seeing with US Bank. So again, even the best, or the second best here, has room to improve to catch up to US Bank. So thank you, Glenn.
Yet again, another fantastic insight session, my friend. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, how do I get these sorts of insights for me and my bank? You are more than welcome to come and check it out on our website, flick us an email, or even contact Tony or I on LinkedIn, and we can tee you up with a session. But thanks again. There's a great look at May, and we will see you next month.